213-580-7500. South LA Cafe has free groceries, clothing, and water available at 1700 Browning Boulevard in LA. Track their giveaways or volunteer through their Instagram at South LA Cafe. U-Haul is donating short-term storage free of charge for 30 days to evacuees. Shelter for small or large animals can be accessed by calling 211. A Black-led coalition of community organizations is offering support and resources in the Altadena area at the Flint Ridge Center at 236 West Mountain Street in Pasadena. For comprehensive lists of resources for housing, food, shelter, and more, visit Mutual Aid LA Network on Instagram. Praying for LA and standing with you. KBLA Talk 1580.
Check it out.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We're all busting out. That was Rick James. We're going to turn our attention today to a very, very serious issue. President Trump spoke at the White House press briefing room Thursday morning in the aftermath of a tragic and deadly plane crash in the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. And he sought to blame for the tragedy diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and the Biden administration. According to CBS, the collision of a regional jet and a U.S. Army helicopter late Wednesday was the first major commercial plane crash in the United States in more than a decade. The president said, "I speak to you this morning in an hour of anguish for our nation." He said the massive search and rescue operation that began overnight was leveraging every asset at our disposal. And the responders have done a phenomenal job. The work is now shifted to a recovery mission, he said. Sadly, there are no survivors. We are in mourning. This has really shaken a lot of people. The president pledged to support families affected by the crash, saying we're all searching for answers. We don't know what led to the crash, but some have said and have very strong opinions and ideas, Trump said. We'll find out how this disaster occurred, and we'll ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. The briefing comes after American Eagle flight number 5342, which took off from Wichita, Kansas with 60 passengers and 4 crew members on board, collided Wednesday night with an Army Black Hawk helicopter carrying 3 soldiers near Ronald Reagan Washington Airport. Mr. Trump said he was immediately appointing an acting commissioner to the Federal Aviation Administration, Christopher Rocheleau. Trump noted that the collision happened on a very clear night, and for some reason, adjustments weren't made. That's code language. He criticized the Biden administration and attacked diversity initiatives, claiming that he had increased standards for those who work within aviation. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and Democrats put policy first, Mr. Trump claimed. He took aim at what he called and claimed was an FAA diversity push, including focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says, FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them in. They can't be air traffic controllers. I don't think so, the president said. Brilliant people have to be in those positions, he said, and you need very, very special and talented people and a very special genius to be able to do it. The president of the United States took an American tragedy. 3 soldiers lost their life, more than 60 commercial passengers, Americans, some Russian ice skaters as well, lost their lives last night in a very, very tragic aviation accident. For the President of the United States to use that moment to make it political without any evidence whatsoever that diversity had anything to do with the crash speaks to the kind of moral depravity that we are going to be dealing with just 2 weeks into the president's new term. I'm deeply concerned about it. We should all be deeply concerned about it because these bell whistles targeting people of color, African Americans, women, the marginalized, people who've been historically left behind, will be pivots that the President of the United States will take over the next 4 years. We have to prepare ourselves for it. But it's not just that. On the question of moral depravity, to take advantage of people who've lost loved ones and a nation in mourning, to spin it, to pivot to a political position, a profoundly controversial position, to suggest that there are unqualified people functioning in air traffic control towers across the United States would have a chilling effect on federal aviation, aviation travel throughout our nation, particularly since the investigations are ongoing and there is no evidence whatsoever that diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives have anything to do with this. Air traffic controllers are some of the most drug-tested individuals on Earth. As soon as the plane crash occurred, there was a drug test. They are some of the most qualified people who strenuously take testing and exams in order to do their jobs. When we come forward, we will continue the conversation on the bell whistles of Donald Trump and the dangers that they represent going forward.
It's afternoon. C. Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
They can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips, I am a revolutionary.
On Saturday, February 22nd, you're invited to A Night with the Panthers, a special fundraiser dedicated to supporting Black Panther veterans who now require assistance with essential needs such as medicine, food, and housing. These Black Panther veterans championed human rights, fed the hungry, educated the community, and stood as powerful symbols of resistance and resilience. Despite their incredible sacrifices, loving and serving the people did not come with retirement plans or financial security. So, now it's our time to honor their legacy and ensure that they are cared for with the dignity they deserve. You can help by attending and supporting A Night with the Panthers, Saturday, February 22nd, 6:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Project 43 Team Post Center, 6841 Crenshaw Boulevard, Los Angeles. For more information, contact Black Panther Party Breakfast at gmail.com or call 707-554-2784. That's Black Panther Party Breakfast at gmail.com or call 707-554-2784. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. If you own a timeshare, don't miss this public service announcement from Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group.
If you receive an unsolicited phone call or mail piece to discuss selling, renting, or especially canceling your timeshare, don't fall for it. If you really want out of your timeshare, hang the phone up immediately or throw that mail piece in the trash and contact your timeshare resort or Wesley Financial Group for assistance with your timeshare. As the only Inc. 500 timeshare cancellation company, our knowledge, experience, and results has made Wesley a trusted resource for over 40,000 families we've helped get out of their timeshare. Give us a call and I'll send you our timeshare exit information kit free. with the straight facts about your timeshare and all of your options for cancellation.
Call for your free info kit, 800-511-2112. That's 800-511-2112. 800-511-2112.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We are talking this afternoon about the president's insensitive correlation between diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and a tragic event that happened last night, killing a number of families, world-class skaters, their coaches, and 3 servicemen. When you think about the 60, nearly 70 people who have been tragically taken from us, you think about the multiplier effect that each of them has a mother and father, and now we're at 180. You think about the 6 degrees, or in some cases, 1 degree of separation between all of us. Someone, somewhere, at some time, knew who was on that plane. Future Olympians, high school students, college students, the very best that they could be, champion skaters. And to take this moment, rather than celebrate their lives and share the grief with their families, a nation in mourning, the president decided that it was in his political interest to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. A kind of political non sequitur, having nothing at all to do with the events of last night at 9 p.m. at Reagan National Airport. Diversity, equity, inclusion. He wants to get to the bottom of it. Up next are scapegoats. He'll be looking for women in the control towers. He'll be looking for African Americans in the control towers. He'll be looking for people of different sexual orientations in the control towers. These men and women, Thanksgiving after Thanksgiving, Christmas after Christmas, at the conclusion of our semesters in college and graduate school, and we return home for the summer and summer breaks, these men whose name, these women whose names we do not know, are really our eyes, ears, our angels in the sky. When you're sitting in your seat, hoping that a flight attendant serves you a drink or maybe a meal, and you trust the education, the qualifications of the pilot, the first officer, the captain of that plane. In that moment, you are so safe that you rarely reflect upon the color or the sex or the orientation of who is flying the vehicle. There's no chance that they're in the cockpit of a major aviation vehicle without extraordinary qualifications. But it doesn't stop there. There are these men and these women in these control towers, the guardians of our skies, handing off hundreds, if not thousands of planes per hour. When you leave LAX, Chicago O'Hare Airport, New York LaGuardia, JFK, Washington Reagan, Thurgood Marshall, Jackson Hartsfield. When you leave these airports, your life, our lives are in the hands of men and women that we do not know. We trust them to make sure that the runway that we take off on is consistent with the runway that we land on. And on behalf of every one of our loved ones, we say a little prayer, whether we acknowledge it or not, that we are counting on them to deliver us from our point of origin to a destination. To a destination. They're like our soldiers who fight our wars in foreign battlefields. We don't know their names. What we know is that they're defending our interests. And that's why we honor and treat our veterans with such high regard. Because in those moments, we know that someone is sacrificing something greater than themselves. We want them and we expect them to come to work sober. We expect them to be extremely qualified because so much is at stake in the decisions that they make. The President of the United States had an opportunity to defend these men and these women who operate nameless and faceless, but are more than responsible for making sure that our bags arrive on time. Sure, our flights run late sometimes, and yes, TSA is congested and traveling during the holidays is extremely difficult, but there are these men and women who we count on to make sure that the plane we board lands safely at their destination. And the President of the United States, in this moment, decided that he wanted to blame a diversity program on the basis of the accident without any evidence. I was a student in college when the Challenger space shuttle exploded. I felt some kind of way about it because Ron McNair was a student and a graduate of North Carolina A&T State University, and we heralded him as an African-American astronaut on the Challenger flight. And Christy McAuliffe, and I believe the captain's name was Resnick. I believe there was an Asian American, Onizuka, on that space shuttle as well. Reagan that night had a moment with the American people in the Oval Office. And while I was no big fan of the politics of Ronald Reagan, I've never forgot this moment. When Ronald Reagan said that these men and women touched the face of God. My father, Reverend Jesse Jackson, had a near similar interpretation. He said he believed it was one of the few national tragedies where a woman who happened to be a school teacher and an African American, an Asian, and a Jewish astronaut, and people from different walks of life were all part of the same national tragedy. Dad called it a rainbow in the sky. That's what we felt at North Carolina A&T State University, but students felt the same way at Harvard University, and students felt the same way at University of Southern California and USC and in Berkeley. Students felt the same way at the University of Chicago, and the Jewish community mourned, the African American community mourned, the Asian American community mourned. Teachers all across our country, because Christy McAuliffe was on the flight, every one of us mourned because we all in that moment shared in the destiny of our nation. It was a rainbow in the sky. It wasn't a flight of all white men. It wasn't a flight of all African American captains and pilots. It was the very best that the American people could muster to touch the face of God. That's the kind of communicator that Ronald Reagan was. And while I didn't care much for his politics, there was a father figure in Ronald Reagan for the nation. And when that guy would shake his head and tilt his head to the side and say, well, I'm not here to make fun of, I'm not going to make age an issue in this campaign because my opponent here, I believe Walter Mondale, is too young and too immature to be able, and too inexperienced to be the next president of the United States. Even if you didn't like Reagan's politics, you had to admire how he controlled the moment and how he spoke to the issue of civility, with decency, with strength. I understand the world and some corners of the world are fearing President Donald Trump, but when I was growing up, the world also feared Ronald Reagan. And I did not agree with everything he did throughout the world. There's no doubt about that. But he did restore respect for the nation in the world. And no, I did not agree with the things that his Justice Department did and his Civil Rights Department and the things that they did to undermine the Voting Rights Act and civil rights protections for all Americans. And nor did I agree with the way in which he was raised. Of course, given his age, I wasn't around at the time he was raised, but I can tell you that from those humble beginnings, I saw something in Reagan, just like I saw something in my study of Lyndon Johnson. And that is, these men were one way before they became president of the United States. But it is impossible to be the same person that you were before you became president, once you become president, and you understand the gravity of the responsibility that you have for all of the people. And then after the presidency, the best example, Jimmy Carter, it is impossible to be president of the United States and it not change your life. I was asked the question, and I know we'll be coming forward in just a moment. Joe Biden promised he would not pardon his son, but he did. A reporter asked me, why did he do that? I said, because when he was candidate Biden, he thought he was going to win and run again. But when he became president, he thought about his family. And when he knew that his term was coming to an end, He didn't want to leave his own son in that system. When I think about what some people consider to be the vacillation of Abraham Lincoln, some of the things he said before he was president of the United States, what he truly felt about black folk. Had he shared that he was going to emancipate black people when he was running for president of the United States, he never would have got elected. So he said, I want to stop the expansion of slavery into the Western states. I'm not going to change my position on that. Keep slavery where it is. That doesn't sound like an emancipator to me. And then Abraham Lincoln, before he's even sworn in as president, Fort Sumter and southern states begin leaving the Union one at a time, and he inherits something different when he becomes president. And sometime around 1862, late 1862, 1863, he understands that in order to save the Union, the Negroes' cause and the Union's cause is one and the same. And therefore, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation. You are not the same person when you run for office that you become when you see the gravity of that which you inherit. It's a sad moment for the president and for America to see the president acutely condemn those who have nothing to do with what happened last night tragically. We stand with those families. They're forever in our memory, and we will never let go. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Federal officials are promising a thorough investigation into the D.C. midair crash that likely killed 67 people. President Trump says air travel safety standards were lowered during previous administrations. He criticized former Presidents Obama and Biden for putting politics first. Trump went on to claim DEI policies lowered the standards for air traffic controllers. Los Angeles public property suffered $350 million in wildfire damage, mostly from the Palisades fire. Eaton fire damage affecting Los Angeles County and the predominantly black neighborhood of Altadena, as well as Pasadena, will be counted separately. And funeral services for Richmond, Virginia's first black mayor, Henry L. Marsh III, are set for Saturday, the first day of Black History Month. The political trailblazer and former Virginia senator passed away on January 24th at 91. I'm Amber Payton on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Two significant streaks are on the line for the USC women's basketball team when they host Minnesota tonight at the Galen Center. USC, ranked 4th in the country, has won 14 straight games and 8 straight at home. 7 p.m. tip-off tonight. If you're streaming at home, you can catch the game live on the Peacock channel. Congratulations to UCLA legend Reggie Miller. Miller was chosen by NBC to be the network's #1 NBA analyst. NBC will start broadcasting NBA games next season. Alumni of Howard University and Florida A&M, here's a date you should circle on your calendar. Saturday, August 30th. That's the date the football teams at Howard and Florida A&M will meet up in the Orange Blossom Classic at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. The popular HBCU schools finalized negotiations today to play in one of the top showcase games for HBCU football. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way Black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down, get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Consult a doctor prior to use.
Wow, you look amazing. What have you been doing?
I'm sure you've heard of Ozempic, Wegovy, and the other GLP-1 medications, right? Well, I found this great company called Zelfie. If you qualify, their providers can prescribe medications like Ozempic and Wegovy and other GLP-1 medications that are 80 to 90% less expensive, all 100% online.
I can get GLP-1 medications for 80 to 90% less and do it all online? No doctor's office or pharmacy?
Yes, Zelfie can provide semaglutide or tirzepatide, the active ingredients in Ozempic and other expensive GLP-1s, but for 80 to 90% less and shipped directly to your door.
How do I get started with Zelfie?
Just send them a text.
Text BEST to 200-300 to get started today with Zelfie. Get the same active ingredients in Wegovy or Ozempic, but for 80 to 90% less and 100% online. Don't wait. Text BEST to 200-300 right now for a link to your exclusive offer. Text BEST to 200-300. That's BEST to 200-300. BEST to 200-300.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest for the next 30 minutes will be none other than Ted London. Ted is an estate planning lawyer, and I invited Ted to be on the program today in part because we've been hearing a lot about furloughs in the federal government, people losing their jobs, buyouts, but then no one can anticipate what the news events are going to be of the day. I want to get to those issues with Ted London because there's no one better at estate planning than Ted. But before I do, Ted, your thoughts on the tragic loss of these Americans and these soldiers who were killed last night. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Ted, you have to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, Jesse. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be with you this afternoon. You know, I've been listening to your commentary before I came on this afternoon, and it's so poignant the way that you describe and outline the tragedy that has occurred. It's a sad day for America and Americans. You know, my wife works in the travel industry. We travel a lot. And, you know, we know that travel is at an all-time high here in America. After the pandemic, people are traveling all over the world, and we just take it for granted that we're going to arrive safely during our travel
expeditions. So so sad for the families throughout America. Like you said, we're just one degree of separation from knowing someone, being familiar with someone in this tragic incident. It's very, 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 very sad.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your thoughts, and I'm sure our listeners appreciate that. Attorney London, this has been, aside from this tragedy, which no one can ever anticipate, this has been a very, very difficult week for federal employees as they've heard about furloughs, buyouts. I want to say forced retirement programs. And that means that for the 2 million federal workers that Donald Trump said that he wants to buy out, to change the scope and the focus of the government, these families must be feeling some kind of anxiety about their futures. I'd like you to take your time, share with us, one, what they should be doing. Should they be buying a new car? Should they be buying a used car? Should they be saving whatever it is that they can? Ted, I'm no expert on financial matters. In fact, I have nothing for which to finance or be an expert on when it comes to money. But let me turn this part of the program over to you.
Well, you know what? There's so much anxiety about just the economy these days, particularly amongst African American families, because even when the economy is good, so often African Americans, we don't get the benefit of a roaring economy. You know, the fact is only 2%, roughly 2% of African American households have a household net worth of over $1 million. You got to keep in mind, $1 million is not what $1 million was decades ago. So only 2% of African American households have a net worth of $2 million. So now is not the time, whether you are a federal employee, whether you are full-time employed, whether you are a pensioner, whether you are a business owner. This is not the time to buy new cars, new purses, new homes.
You're saying, Ted, that it's not the time?
It is not the time to do those kind of things. No, we have to be prudent right now because we don't know how things are going to go for the government, for the economy, and for African American families and households. Listen, we are at the very beginning of the Trump era, of Trump point two, and he is much more aggressive about the rollback of DUI, the pushback for even qualified, educated professionals. And so there's going to be a backlash to the African American community, African American families, African American households. So we have to kind of wait and see what's going to happen. And in the meantime, we should be very prudent about how we are managing our finances. Now, some good news is that the stock market is roaring. And if you are an investor in the market, they don't necessarily know what your race is per se. So I believe, and we kind of talked about this a bit last week, that African American folks should be making prudent investments because, again, if you have the billionaire class that's running the government, hence the economy, stands to reason that the stock market is going to do well, in my opinion. So we should probably be looking for ways to get involved in financial investments. But you have to find a financial planner, preferably an African American one for African American families, who's going to give you good information, prudent information. And of course, you have to do reading as well to make sure you bring yourself up to speed on how you should be managing your finances in this kind of era. But in my opinion, yes, the stock market is still going to be a viable place to have security for your finances.
So there's some people who obviously are in a position to play in the markets, but then there's this vast number of people who have no investments, don't have disposable income for which they can invest. Help us understand your definition of what prudence means. And by that, I mean, is that fewer meals out? Is that wait for it to come on Netflix for free? Define prudence for us and help us make sense of the uncertainty.
Well, again, it means cutting back on some of your expenditures. Either you're going to generate more household income, or you're going to reduce some of your expenses. If you're waiting for it to come on Netflix for free, that means you have a Netflix account. Listen, I just had a conversation with my wife this morning to eliminate our Netflix account. You know what? I want to pivot just a bit, Jesse, if I can.
Please.
Again, my wife works in the travel industry, been working in the travel industry for a major airline for over 30 years now. And so when we saw the tragedy of the collision last night, we were up late into the night, early in the morning, looking at the details. She's very interested in it. She was making phone calls to see initially if her company was involved in the tragedy. Fortunately, it was not. But after watching that last night, I got up this morning and I had a conversation with her, and I didn't want to really make the conversation a morbid conversation. I made it rather informal. And really the conversation was what happens or what she should be doing if I would happen to pass away unexpectedly. All those 65 plus or so people who passed away, probably none of them expected to pass away unexpectedly the way that they did. And they, like you said, they have families, moms, wives, husbands. Do they know what to do? Again, as an estate planning lawyer, oftentimes we see family members who come in after a loved one has passed away and they don't know what to do. And I had a conversation with my wife this morning about if I happen to pass away, here's what I think you should do with whatever kind of financial things we have going on. And I advised her what I would do if something were to happen to her in terms of our children, our investments, our real estate, what she could expect from me. I think families should be talking to their husbands and wives. Believe it or not, oftentimes they don't have a lot of information. They may be married for 30 plus years and they still don't have all the information about how the family is operated, how budgets are operated, how expenses are, how investments are. You have to have these conversations with your spouses, and you should be having them with your children as well.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is attorney Ted London. He is one of the nation's leading estate lawyers and planners. We are in a somber mood. Americans lost their lives last night. President of the United States did not respond in a positive way towards those families. And so we're going to keep working our way through this together. When we come forward, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. with Ted London.
Oh, wow. While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has a program specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt? Powerful tax assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution firm, A-rated by the Better Business Bureau. Their award-winning team of tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. One call to Optima can start the process, helping to end your worries about wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other IRS actions. Make sure you're getting the best options to resolve your tax problems. Call the experts at Optima today for a free confidential consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is attorney Ted London, who is one of the nation's foremost authorities on trusts, estates, wills, and the idea that we should be transferring wealth to our progeny. Ted, we're working our way through a little bit of anxiety, not only anxiety because of the tragedy of the loss of life, but we're also working our way through anxieties that these executive orders have created. And it occurs to me in this moment that so much of what holds us together as a nation is the idea of trust. That trust also includes trust in investments, trust in the marketplace. Help us restore our trust and faith in the ability to grow our way out of this problem.
Well, you know what? Believe it or not, Jesse, you know what? I see an opportunity where we are today. Again, we have a tough road in front of us. It's been a tough evening last night. Tragedy occurred. Listen, as far as I'm concerned, it is a tragedy that our president is a President Trump. That is a tragedy for African American people. The good news is, oftentimes there are opportunities in tragic times, and I think there are opportunities here. I think there's opportunities. We know that the DEI, there's going to be substantial rollbacks in the government and in the corporate sphere. A lot of people with a lot of experience in all genres of professional life are going to be out of work. Throughout the country, Midwest, South, Northeast, West Coast, in the African American communities, there are storefronts available. You know what? Often going back to the 60s riots of Dr. King, if you will, some of those spaces are still available. I think this is a great time for people with a lot of experience in a lot of different areas to get into business. One of the things that we know is business is what makes more millionaires than any other area of work, if you will. Of course, if you have wealthy parents or even middle-class parents who did some estate planning and passed down the value of their real estate, the value of their financial accounts without having to go through the probate process, that is a great start. But business ownership makes more millionaires than any other area of employment, period. Black folks have to get involved in owning businesses. Here's what I have discovered. If you start a business and you provide a good service, African-American folks will make an effort to support you. Now, there are always going to be those who will say, you know what, I've tried an African-American business before and they let me down, they disappointed me, and I'm never going back to an African-American business. So you're always going to have those naysayers. That's 1 or 2% of all the African-American population. Black folks want to do business with Black folks. And we have to make sure that they have a place to do business. Cleaners, I think I was listening to a caller earlier that was saying Black folks had cleaners and their law offices and dental offices and professional businesses and services. Well, we need those in the African-American community. If we have those in the African-American community, Black folks will patronize those businesses. So really, this is a call to you professionals who may be downsized, right-sized, furloughed out, whatever, DEI'd out, whatever it may be. This is really an opportunity for you. Don't think of this. Don't fret too long in this pile of what we have going on right now. Get back out there, make a plan, find a location in African-American communities all across this country, and Black folks will support your business.
So you're saying pick yourself up. Don't let the anxiety overcome you. Don't let what you're hearing in the news overcome you. There's an opportunity within the ghetto. I called it gold within the ghetto. There is an opportunity to turn to our community, to establish businesses, to establish legacy wealth, if you will. Just a week or so ago, you told us to get out of the business of writing wills, where we will end up in probate court, and look at the idea of living trusts. Explain to our listeners the difference between a will, a living trust, and the problems that wills create.
Well, Jesse, I like what you just said. Before I answer your question, I like what you just said about gold in the ghetto. There is gold in the ghetto, and there are family traditions of wealth being established in the ghetto right now. Unfortunately, it is just not with African-American families. We have so many other races who are coming in and mining the gold in gas stations, restaurants, liquor stores, cleaners, real estate ownership, real estate development. You're naming it. Gold is being mined in the ghetto. Black folks just aren't mining it. But for those who have accumulated some nuggets of gold, primarily in home ownership and real estate, we want to make sure that when they pass away, it is true that you cannot take it with you. You have to have a plan to transfer it to your loved ones so they'll get it very easy without having to go through the expensive, time-consuming, stressful probate process. So the primary difference between a living trust and a will is, with a will, your loved ones will have to go through that expensive, time-consuming, stressful probate process. With a living trust, your family will avoid the long, expensive, drawn-out, complicated probate process. That is the primary difference. With a will, your loved ones will have to go through the probate process. It never surprises me, Jesse, when we see smart, accomplished, middle-class families who still believe that if they have a will, it will avoid the probate process. A will not avoid the probate process. It will send you through the probate process. That's why we don't do wills for our clients. We prefer that they do some sort of trust to avoid the probate process.
You know, I don't think there's ever been an African-American who hasn't gone to a funeral where at some point in time the conversation is, did he die with a will? Did she leave a will? What did she leave you? What did he leave you? What did grandma leave you? What did grandpa leave you? We can't find the will.
Can't find the
will.
will.
Y'all been looking at her Bible. Y'all been looking between her bed, under the pillow. Maybe she put it in a peanut a Folgers coffee can out back with the rest of the $5 bills and quarters. Do you have a will? But what I'm hearing from you, Attorney London, is we should be asking in these same environments, do they have a living trust? Do they have a living trust?
Sure.
Do they have a living trust? Do they have a trust?
Sure. And you know what? That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. You'd be surprised at how many middle-class folks who've done really well for themselves. Surprisingly, I was just looking at just a graph before we came on air, and still a large percent of African-American people live in the South. But I think 10% they said live in the West, 17% lives in the Midwest, 17% of African-American folks live in the Northeast. That means over 50% of Black folks still live in the South. There's still a lot of land ownership by Black folks in the South. Not as much as it used to be, because a lot of the land has been stolen over the decades and the generations. The same thing is really occurring now throughout the other parts where Black folks have migrated and they have acquired home ownership. We get clients come in constantly throughout the country who are saying that folks are calling them, asking them, do they want to sell their homes? And so Black folks have to protect what they have fought for and earned over decades and sometimes generations. Oftentimes it is their real estate. You have to make sure that that is going to be transferred to your loved ones without them having to go through some expensive probate process, seeing some dang on lawyer, the bad kid fighting that they're entitled to some portion of it, and they haven't seen mom and dad sometimes in years, certainly didn't help them when they were ill, and they're going to cause the most hell, and oftentimes cause families to lose or fumble what's a valuable asset, which is real estate in the African American community. Folks are fighting for real estate in this community, and I don't know if we're doing such a great job throughout the country, at Black folks that is, in protecting what we have fought for, dealt with redlining, 30 years of employment, dealing with bosses and layoffs and all of that to buy and pay for these homes, and we're not doing the best job of protecting them sometimes.
I just want to say it's impossible to do Black talk radio and not talk about the ways and the means within which we can achieve wealth. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. My very special guest today was Ted London. When we come forward.
Thank you so much, Jesse.
Honored to have you.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News.